call the meeting to order. It's a little after 7:01. And Angie, would you mind starting with the roll call?
All right, sure thing. Good evening, everybody. Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Brian Dorsey.
Present.
Rich Miller.
Here.
Bob Silverforb is hopefully going to be joining us shortly. Mike Smith.
Here.
Megan Thornton.
Here.
Chris West.
Here.
And Lori Zwingli.
Here.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes, or are there any questions on the minutes?
No questions.
How can we do this without Bob? His last.
We're going to have to learn how to.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented unless Angie has already heard from Bob.
I second.
I did not receive any communication, so hopefully that means all was well.
Okay, and then we had a second from Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. So Angie, if you want to just send those over to me, I'll sign the signature page.
All right, I sure will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we'll move into board member announcements. Whoops, sorry about that. Did you guys hear some feedback? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, well, board chair announcements. We'll go ahead and start with Brian, if that's okay.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Rich?
Nothing.
Okay. Hi, Bob. Can you hear us?
One thing I will not miss about these Microsoft Teams, and Chris knows this, every meeting I'm cut off. And I got cut off. It continues on. I will not miss that. But for a while anyway. We'll see how long this lasts.
Well, your timing of your arrival is perfect because we were just going through board member announcements and we were just about to arrive to you. If you had anything that you'd like to say.
You know, I really, I don't have anything further to say. When I announced 2 meetings ago that I was going to be dropping off the board, I told why, and it's been a great run. I've enjoyed all the meetings and all the people that I've gotten to know on here. That I will miss. Will I miss these Zoom meetings? Absolutely not. But other than that, Diane, I just want to wish everybody good luck, and I'm sure that you guys will pick 3 very qualified new members. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Mike, do you have anything?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Megan?
I just have a question. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure with the air conditioning on if you could hear me or not. Chief, I heard that there are going to be some staffing changes. Is that something you're going to talk in the report tonight about?
I don't know. That's kind of a general statement. I guess I'm wondering, you talking about some hiring update?
I've heard about a couple officers that have been on force not even 5 years are leaving, and I just was wondering if we knew why, because it seems like a short time to be on.
Yeah,
like if it was like a family move, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I'll address that in the staff report. Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, Chris?
As Mike always comments, I've got lots to bring up. So first, there was an article in KXL today that I thought was really interesting. And it was a national survey that looked at what people thought were, what types of crimes were they worried about, and were they worried about crime? And Oregonians were less worried than the national average about crime, is the first thing. And then the other thing that jumped out at me, and I think it's important, is that porch pirates was the top crime of concern nationally and in Oregon. It wasn't vandalism, protests, all the other things that are in the news, but it was something close to home, porch pirates. So I thought that was interesting, and it also leads me to think that maybe through social media, the PD could say something about Porch Pirates Sea to just remind the citizens of what they can do. The second thing that I wanted to mention was with my kids moving out, we've got a lot of stuff that we're trying to sell. And I was reminded that we have that sign at the PD that that's a good location to meet people. And I think that's another thing that we should clearly put out there and remind people, because it's all about personal safety. And I just think that that's something that we could add. And then lastly, this morning, I saw the new picture of the staff, and I posted it on the Sherwood community group page. And as of 8-9 hours later, there's over 250 likes or hearts and 21 positive comments. So there was a few that people were shocked and impressed at how large the staff looked from previous. It's that it's more than just the officers are in the picture. I know that, but there are a couple new. We've been able to fill some positions, but that was really cool to see the community reaction to that post. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Chris. I actually was going to comment on that as well. I like the new pictures as well, and they did seem to get a lot of attention and likes, so that was good. Lori? You're on mute.
Bob, I just wanted to say that it has been an honor serving with you all of this time, and I will miss your wealth of experience and your ever practical approach.
Thank you very much, Lori. I think back to the days when you and I were the chair and co-chair, and those were fun times. I think we got the group, the board, all running very well. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lori. So then I'll just go ahead and expand on that. I was going to start at the beginning, but when Bob joined back in, it's a perfect time now. So Bob and Rich, thank you both for your time on the board. We've really appreciated all the time that you've put it in. You both have put in a number of years. We're sad to see you go, but we're also excited to, expand the knowledge of the Police Advisory Board to some additional citizens and share some new information with some new people. So thank you guys, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Diane.
And then we will move into the business section. So our first business item is the Traffic Safety Committee liaison positions. And as you know, Mike and Chris are serving on this subcommittee right now as the liaisons to our board, and their term is ending after, I believe you have one more meeting, right? At the end of June. Yeah. And so effective 7/1, we're looking to have a discussion over who is going to be the next two people from our board serving in this role. So I guess I'll open it up to suggestions or people raising their hands if they have interest, and we'll start it in that way, if that's okay.
Remind me again what the level of commitment is throughout the year.
It's one night a month. It's the following Thursday from this meeting. So next Thursday.
And is there a lot of reading that goes with it?
No, we were issued a manual that shows all sorts of stuff that you never knew existed with highways and roads and all that kind of good stuff. But it's nothing that we had to memorize or anything. We're fortunate that we've got city staff there excuse me, to explain everything to us as we go along. So it's just a nice reference manual. If you ever want to know anything about speed bumps or speed humps or all this kind of good stuff, it's in the manual, but it's nothing that you've got to study. And I was going to say, I can't speak for Chris, but it's been a really interesting committee. I've learned a lot, and most of the meetings have been incredibly interesting.
Yeah, and Lori, I'd just add that, we get like a week or so ago, we got the 3 new forms, complaints or requests in, and just looking on Google where they're at or driving by to get a sense is important. Most of the time, you know where it is and it's no big surprise. There's some that, you gotta at least look at, but it's nothing that you can't do online or drive by. So I don't see it as being any more time than this has been. And like Mike said, it's really interesting, and being able to really solve some issues for some local residents or for the city at large. It's been rewarding in that sense. We've had to deny some stuff because it just didn't make sense, but we've got a good process. We went through some bumps and stuff, but it's not that, it's no more than this is in terms of time commitment.
Okay. Well, if nobody else has a burning desire, I would step up to that.
I would also consider it as well, Lori and Chris and Mike. I believe, is it a 1-year kind of rotation is what we talked about? Yeah, and then we'll look to find some more folks to step in and sort of learn about the subcommittee. So I'd be willing to do that as well. I looked it up today. It looks like is it 6 p.m. start time on the 3rd or the 4th Thursday? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I thought one of the things we talked about last meeting was waiting to see the 3 new board members and what they wanted to do too before definitively deciding who's on traffic safety. Am I confused in the conversation?
I just had recalled that we were going to talk about this at the same time as the chair and vice chair, and the chair and vice chair definitely has to be taken care of this month, because we have to fill those before next month. I'm not here next month, so selfishly it has to be somebody, and it's not Ralph. So I don't know. I mean, we could, they're also probably the new folks on the board are also going to be getting acquainted to this board and that time commitment. So my only hesitation is, welcome to this board and then volunteer for another board. That maybe somebody who's already had experience on this board could volunteer for the other. And then in a year, once those folks sort of get their feet under them, then they could consider that position.
That makes sense.
That's sort of my take on it.
I echo that 100%.
I'm all for volunteering. I just can't take on any more right now.
Can I ask Chris and Mike, do you foresee that going to an in-person setting, or would that remain as, based on your conversations, as a sort of a Zoom or virtual meeting moving forward, even as restrictions lift?
I think that's open for discussion at this point. I mean, I have been thinking that it, as well as this, would be going back to in-person meetings, but I think that is something that the subcommittee can decide if they want to continue with a Zoom meeting or make it in person.
Brian, we haven't discussed it yet.
My sense is that it's going to be an in-person meeting. As a formal board and commission, we kind of look at it as kind of like a subcommittee, the Police Advisory Board, but it is a standalone advisory committee to City Council. So that came as an offshoot from the Police Advisory Board. So once council makes a determination to begin meeting in person again, the other boards and commissions will follow suit. Not before, but they will after. So I would assume that committee would as well. As I'm sure everybody can understand and appreciate, there's a unique set of challenges that come with the virtual meetings. Not the least of which is the sharing of information and packets and those kinds of things. Clearly not insurmountable, but probably not going to continue unless there's a unique set of circumstances.
I'll also add that while we say the commitment's a year, there's nothing that says within 6 months if somebody's time commitment, you run into a snag that you can't change out, I wouldn't think, right, Chief?
That's very well said, Counselor. That's exactly right. And on the flip side, if, for example, Mike or Chris were like, man, I'm just having so much fun, I'd be willing to do that, another year. That would be acceptable as well. So snicker. But I mean, yeah, if that either one of those would certainly be possible.
So what do we think about then doing an internal split term? Like if Diane did, July through December and I did January through June. Something like that.
Well, I would, my recommendation would be in keeping simple would just be we have 2 volunteers now, and if 6 months from now, one or both of them want to rotate out for some unforeseen reason, then I think the board can address it at that point. But I don't see any reason to, to try to break up the cookie too many times.
So do we need a motion to accept their volunteer?
I'm not sure if you technically would need that or not, but I think just a consensus and the headship. I mean, they volunteered, so as long as there's nobody else and Angie can record a consensus among the group, I think that'd probably be satisfactory.
Okay. Was there anybody else? We don't want to, close it down to anybody else if somebody else had an interest as well. But then, of course, as you can tell, we'll be jumping into some more positions here in a second. So, okay. Well, then probably then for this term or the starting on July 1st and after, Lori and I will also attend that sort of subcommittee for the traffic safety committee as well.
Okay.
Which moves us to our next conversation. So chair and vice chair selections. And as we alluded to earlier, this will kick off right away and you'll dive into the July meeting in these new positions. So I'll open it up for conversations / volunteers and let us know your interest.
So I said this last meeting and I'll reiterate it. I'm happy to do either chair or vice chair. It doesn't matter to me, but I feel, being on for 3 years, I'm to a point where I figured out what we do and I can step up and help a little more. But it really doesn't matter to me which hat.
Diane, can I assume that you are not willing, given the fact you volunteered for the other position, to do this
That's
again?
a good point, Bob. So I did talk about this a little bit on the last meeting, that I would be willing to take sort of on the traffic safety liaison position in lieu of the vice chair at this point. Or I would stay on the vice chair if not needed to do the traffic safety. But sort of as we're kind of low on numbers, as we're filling some positions, we talked about last time, maybe we do a little bit of a rotation. And so you're correct that I would prefer not to stay in the vice chair position in taking on the additional traffic safety board.
Okay, well, given that fact, I wasn't thinking of the vice chair position. I was thinking of the chairperson.
So was I.
You've done a great job as the vice chair. I think you would do a terrific job as the chairperson. And if we are nominating anybody, I would nominate you.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And I spoke to a couple others about this. It's something that I would probably be interested in if I didn't have 3 high schoolers in my house and a full-time job right now. It's just the reality is that, you know, I'm awake more than I'm asleep. And so it's just a lot for me right now. So I've considered it, and it's probably because I'm really close, like Chris, to having a little bit of a, you know, quieter house at home in the future. It'd be something I'd consider in the next few years, just not at this time.
Okay, well, given that, I would nominate Brian Dorsey to be the chair.
That nomination. I accept that nomination.
You would be willing to, Brian?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Oh, Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to make the same motion, and Brian and I had a little discussion to make sure that he had bandwidth. So that's awesome. I'm glad you're willing to step up, Brian. I think you bring some good perspectives to, and you've already brought a lot to the committee or the advisory board. So.
Okay, great.
I'd also like to know if Mike would be interested, since he's now just stepped off of the other committee.
You know, I would be down the road, but not at this point.
Not vice chair either?
Not at this point, no.
Any other
I was just
discussion?
thinking
Or?
how odd it feels to be filling positions when we don't have all of our positions filled for the board. Those don't coincide very well.
No.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chief. You outrank me.
Okay. On the contrary, sir. But anyway, Councilor Young makes a good point. Just so everybody knows kind of where we're at. Every board and commission right now is dealing with the same challenge. So we are doing a global recruitment. We have multiple positions that are coming open on multiple boards and commissions. If you're on social media, you've seen the various advertisements that are posted, you know, the broad advertisements, and then an advertisement about each unique board and or commission. So those recruitments are ongoing, applications are coming in. However, by municipal code, each board and commission needs to elect their chair and vice chair in July of each board year, if you will, right? I mean, it's not a calendar year per se, but anyway, so the year for, and it's not a fiscal year, but the year for boards and commissions with respect to term limits and chair and vice chair run from July 1 through June 30. So so that's where we're at. And, you know, with respect to the chair and vice chair, we need to have one to run the next meeting. Now, the board could certainly just carry over and say, well, we're going to continue with the same folks, I suppose. But frankly, as the point was made earlier, the new members are certainly probably not going to be in a position where they're going to want to be chair or vice chair. And so it really needs to come from those of you that are continuing on the board or either by reappointment or by, you know, still having term left. So it is, we are absolutely, Councilor Young's right. We are in kind of a weird transition point right now, but I guess, as I said, the only consolation is we're not alone. This is, the other thing to remember is this is our first actual July 1 transition in the new system, right? So this is a new municipal code that got passed in the end of 19 or beginning of 2020, COVID struck. And so lots of meetings were postponed and different things. So some terms were adjusted to create the staggering. And so anyway, this is really kind of that first July 1 where we are dealing with that. Certainly that our board is dealing with this. So I know it feels a little weird. I apologize for that. It'll get back to normal again.
Thank you. So any further discussion, or it looks like kind of at this point, so Brian said that he would be willing to be the chair going forward. And then Megan, would you then, if Brian is willing to be the chair, would you be willing to be the vice chair? And or any further discussion? I don't want to shut it down to anybody else who, we talked to Mike, and I think Chris, you're good? Okay. So, because I think that kind of, about spreads us all back out on positions. So, do we have to move and vote on this one, Chief? Okay. So then we'll go with the chair position first, moving to Brian Dorsey. So do we have somebody who moves for Brian Dorsey for the chair position? Lori, thank you. And do we have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Mike and Bob. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. And you'll dig in for the July 1st meeting.
All
Yay!
right.
And then we'll move next to Megan Thornton, who has agreed to be the vice chair starting at the next meeting. So I guess we take a movement to Megan to be in that position.
I move for
Thanks,
Megan to be
Rich.
vice chair.
Thank you. And a second?
I second.
Okay, Brian. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Brian and Megan. This is very helpful. We appreciate you both stepping up. And Chief, you already spoke a little bit about the board member recruitment. Did you have anything further on that?
I'm pausing for the dog to stop barking, but yet another reason why we want to meet in person, right? Because we won't have barking dogs in the background. No, I think that's about it. I think, again, this is a very weird recruitment because it's just, there seems like there's a lot of positions open. So we've gotten at least one application so far for the Police Advisory Board. As you know, we have 3 open positions. So it's going to be important that obviously we get 3 applications for that. So I think we'll give enough time, and I would just encourage you all to encourage friends and family to make sure they get their applications in. I should say friends and neighbors, if they want to be a part of this great board. So that's where we're at right now. As far as the reappointments go, those are going to be prepared. Frankly, we got a little behind the 8 ball on that. All of us did, all the boards and commissions. And so we're going to get those rolling, and they will be approved the first meeting in July. So for this group, they'll be approved in plenty of time for the July meeting. So those of you that are seeking reappointment, we'll get that taken care of. So, and I think that's all I got on that, unless there's questions.
I think there's 3 questions, so I'll take them in the order that I saw them, but just quick as a follow-up to what the chief had to say is that if you haven't seen it already and you are on Facebook, there was a post about the open positions and how to move forward with that. So if you're able to share that post on Facebook, that is helpful because it just spreads the word of the open positions. Or like he said, you can also talk to friends, family, neighbors in Sherwood who might be interested. So I think that Megan had her hand up first.
Thanks, Diane. 2 questions. One, because it's a new year, can we look at moving to a 6 o'clock start like traffic safety does instead of 7? Lori's shaking her head. Okay, and then 2, I didn't see the social media posts. Do you know, Chief, if they were put in every group or how that was done? So I'm in two groups and I didn't see it in
It's on
either.
the city page.
Yeah, it was from the city of Sherwood.
Okay, thanks. I'll go there now.
And then I think this is a personal comment, I suppose, but I think as we originally chose a 7 o'clock start because while a lot of us have worked from home in the last year, and myself included, I know that a lot of offices are starting to move back towards some partial or hybrid model of being in the office. So that's kind of why we captured that 7 o'clock PM start. It's probably also, it allows commuters, which Sherwood used to be a lot more of a commuter city, to get back home before the meetings. So, I would say it does seem like a lot of offices are starting to open up at least partially July, August, and start to be back in the office a little bit. So, Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I remembered correctly. Let's say we only fill one of the three right off the bat. What's our quorum? Is our quorum out of the 9 or is it out of 7?
I believe our quorum is out of 9, but I will double check. I'm getting a a unconfirming or look from Councilor Young, so I need to double check because I could be wrong. We could have changed that in the new code language that it could have been a majority of those present. So at a meeting, so I'll double check.
Yeah, I'm unsure. I thought it was the majority of those
On the board.
on the board at the time.
There you go.
I know city council changed that, but we should double check for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. If it isn't that, it should be. But no, anyway, so yeah, we'll double check. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And then Counselor, did you have another question?
I did. We had so many applicants the last round. Do we think about emailing out to, the ones that didn't get selected last time or the ones who made the top 6 or however, something like that? Or I guess we can wait and see how many more applications we get, but.
Yeah, actually we can do that. And because we just went through a process with Traffic Safety Committee, I have numbers running together in my head. And so I can't remember the last recruitment we had for this board was when Brian,
Yes.
Wasn't there another one that came on with you, Brian?
And Mike. No, Vint, the guy who moved out of town, wasn't he the sheriff?
Right, and then he moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Brian.
I think I was the last one.
Yeah, and so I don't remember how many people we interviewed with
11.
Brian. So yeah, anyway, we'll have to go back and check. I'm sure Angie's making note of that as well for follow up, and we can, at the very least, we can reach out to them and email them and make sure they've seen the post and are aware of the openings.
Great.
Great, good idea, good question. Thank you. Any further discussion on that, or are we ready to move into the traffic safety update? Okay, we'll move forward then, Chris or Mike?
Chris?
Well, I'll start. Diane and Lori, I will take this binder and drop it off for Angie, and she can put a new cover sheet on. Because I'm not sure that I need all this stuff that's in here anymore. Just saying. So I will do that. So save the city and Angie a little time at putting it together. But it's a great resource. But as Mike said, staff is fabulous in the Traffic Safety Committee. We usually ask them to do a little more research and background after we get presented with a new request. So that's the real important stuff, is what both the PD and engineering come back with, and sometimes Julia too in planning. So last month we didn't have any new requests, complaints. We went through what was still pending and discussed those. This coming meeting, we've got 3 new ones plus one that I think is outside of the city. But we did approve a format for the quarterly report to council that gives them the information of what we've been up to in terms of responding to the public's concerns and requests. So that's what I got, Mike.
Yeah, last meeting was just kind of an update on some of the issues that we had pending. There's been a lot of discussion regarding Lad Hill Road and Sunset and new lighting, signage, that type of stuff. As Chris mentioned, we do have 3 kind of interesting ones coming up for this next meeting, which is great. And I would say just regarding staff, Bob Galati, the city engineer, has got to be, I've never met the man personally, but he's got to be the most long-suffering and, really intelligent guy to be able to get across to all of us the laws, the realities of engineering, et cetera, why this will work, why that won't work without his head exploding. So I have really appreciated working with him. And that's all I've got.
Okay, great. Any questions? And Lori, I forgot to actually mention that isn't also the Sherwood Police Foundation meeting right before the Sherwood Police Advisory Board meeting at 6, or just before that, 5?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't do a 6
Yes.
meeting.
I realized that I was picturing myself walk into the room seeing the foundation folks, but it's been such a long time that now it just escaped me. So I figured I would go ahead and put that out here formally as it popped back into my head.
Thank you.
It's just something I like to ask every year, given, how my family schedule works. Not having teenagers or out of home or children, I have an in-home, just finished 2nd grader, and it's already nuts. So it's easier to be out earlier than later. Fine.
I do have one last thing. I noticed that the radar trailer got moved off of Lad Hill over to Willamette. It happens that my daughter moved into Cannery Row, so I'm cruising down Willamette now, and I haven't seen any speeding on there, but I can bet once you go through that one stop sign that some people hit the pedal. So that is not something that is on our list to review, but the PD doing their job of dealing with an issue.
So, Madam Chair, if I can jump in on the traffic safety thing.
Yeah, sure.
Chris talked about the quarterly report, and so that was something that we talked about with council in their annual planning meeting. A nice, easy way to keep them updated on the many issues that the Traffic Safety Committee is dealing with and how many they have open and they're still working with, how many they've closed, so on and so forth. So as he said, that report is near completion. The other thing is near completion that came up with a conversation with council, in particular Councilor Griffin, was having a formal menu, if we will, or list of response options for the Traffic Safety Committee and others to be aware of what those options were. So Mike had talked about the paper that listed the difference between speed humps and speed tables and so on and so forth. So council has adopted for lack of a better term, a list of engineering steps that can be taken in response to traffic complaints. So not everything is accepted or is on the table for the city, but several things are. In addition to that, there's several other steps that can be taken in response to complaints as well. For example, education. They could identify an issue or a complaint that comes in as something that we just need to do some more education about, or they could say, hey, this isn't an education or an engineering issue. This is an enforcement issue. So I'm working on finishing that document up so that somebody can actually just have it in their hands and look, whether they're talking about a particular complaint or they're just kind of curious what kinds of things could they expect to see. And it's going to list all of them, explain what they are, what do they look like, so on and so forth. And of course, I'm not touching the engineering stuff because that's all explained in that document that's been approved by council. But I will explain what different types of education we have, from school-based programs to social media campaigns, and what kind of enforcement opportunities we have, which, by the way, include warnings as well as citations. So traffic enforcement doesn't always include a citation. Traffic enforcement can be a warning and an opportunity to educate. So anyway, so we're also working on that, staff is, and that I hope to have that done maybe by this June meeting, but certainly by the next meeting. We'll let the traffic safety committee give it a thumbs up, and then we'll share it with council. And so anyway, so I just wanted to add that because there's, again, this is a new program, and as it continues to go down the road, pun intended, we continue to improve and enhance it. So thank you. I just wanted to throw those two tidbits out there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, a lot has been accomplished in a year of that committee really being in place, so that's exciting. So it looks like then that'll move us to counselor news. Counselor Young?
Yeah, kind of the big thing on our plate right now is our city manager search. So the application deadline closed on Monday. We received 34 applications from covering 13 different states. So we very well could get somebody, from out of state. We will, I think it's Tuesday, we will be conducting a candidate review session with our consultant to go through the applications and make some semi-finalists. And then from there, semi-finalists will have some stuff to do, and then the recruiter will conduct some more interviews through Zoom, and then we will do a final interviews here, bring all the finalists to Sherwood for in-person. That we're hoping to have somebody on board by September is kind of our goal for that. The other thing is we are hoping to begin in-person meetings sometime in July is what we are hoping. Fingers crossed we hit that 70% vaccination mark and we can go back to in-person. As nice as these Zoom meetings are, where I just walk from my living room to here 4 minutes before the meeting, I think you lose a lot via virtual than in person. So I've really missed our live council meetings for the last 16 months or however long it's been. So I think once that goes back live, like Chief said, then our other boards and commissions will probably follow suit, and hopefully some normalcy will continue after that. So fingers crossed that we find a great city manager candidate, because there's some big shoes to fill. So yeah. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, like you said, it's going to take planning on everyone's part to get to meetings on time, right? Because we just wander in. We're going to have to get dressed. We're going to have to go outside of the house. Thank you. And so we'll move into staff report, Chief.
Yes, thank you. So a couple things. There's two things on the agenda, and then there's a couple other things that I want to address that have either come up tonight or that just popped into my head. So Chris had talked about porch pirates earlier, and not unlike so many other things we've dealt with in the last 12 plus months, we're going to blame that on COVID. So the issue of having people steal packages off of porches has been around for quite some time. Clearly, it's not new. But we all know the significant increase in shop by mail and folks having things shipped to their home. And so it really became a golden opportunity for those that were interested in stealing things. And certainly Sherwood is no better off and also no worse than any other community. We've had our share of those. So the reminder for everybody, for your friends and neighbors, is that there's a couple things that are kind of easy to do. If you're going to have items shipped to your home, number one, try to have somebody there, right? I mean, that's kind of the Captain Obvious answer. If you can't be there, then see if one of your neighbors can keep an eye out for the package and can pick it up for you while you're not there. So people need to understand that these folks just simply drive down the neighborhood streets, and as they go by homes and they see a package that they're interested in, they will turn around and come back by a second time, and somebody will get out of the car, walk up to the front stoop, pick up the box, walk back to the car. Sometimes they'll even pull into the driveway, and they will be gone in just a matter of minutes. So it's just really important for people to take whatever steps they can to make sure their packages aren't laying there on the porch. As far as talking about this on social media, it's all over social media, whether it's our posts or other posts. We've certainly made lots of posts about it. And that's not to say that we can't do more, but it's just a matter of, trying to get folks to do what they can. The other thing we do is we try to set up stings where we have a baited package, and I'm not afraid to say this because hopefully it'll scare folks away, but a baited package, and we watch, and if you pick that package up and walk away, you're liable to get a little extra attention from the Sherwood Police Department. So that's also important to know, and it's important for your friends and neighbors to know that we are proactively trying to keep this as much under control as we possibly can. So that's my bit on porch pirates. Couple things that we've talked about routinely the last several months: policy updates, working on finishing up the policy updates. The ones that were released from our policy system Lexipol were pretty minor, and so we're going to get those done. But we've also got a couple other policies that we're going to make some tweaks to, like our awards program, making some improvements with that, and little things like that. So there's not a huge amount of those, but we'll get those done and get them in front of you. And then we've had conversations about the use of force, and I appreciate everybody seeking input. And from my perspective, it's really good to get a lot of input, but it's oftentimes equally as informative to not get much input, right? So there's been some questions that have come up, and we've addressed those. But seems like the vast majority of folks, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been engaged in this conversation, and maybe it's a good thing that they just don't have a lot of questions, because they have a level of understanding and trust, and so that's good. Trust, that reminds me of something else I want to share. I had a meeting with our state representative, Courtney Neron. She's our representative in the Oregon legislature in the House of Representatives. And we were talking about some legislation, but in the course of that conversation, she paid me, just not me, but I was the one that was lucky to receive it, paid the Sherwood Police Department an amazing compliment when she said that she consistently hears from her Sherwood constituents how happy they are with the Sherwood Police Department. And she said that the feedback is that the Sherwood PD does things right. And she said, I can assure you I don't hear that from all of my communities, but she said in particular, I hear from people of color in Sherwood that they are very happy and very pleased with the Sherwood Police Department. And so I passed that along because it was just about one of the best pieces of feedback I had gotten in a long time. And I get a lot of positive feedback, but that really, really meant a lot to me. And it's important that you understand it's not about me. It's about the women and the men that wear the uniform and that serve this community. So I just wanted to pass that along to you as well. So those are the use of force topics that we've had, as I said. So we are at the point now where we've given some time to gather that feedback. We're going to finalize a new approach. It's not like we're switching, different types of weapons or anything like that, but it's a new approach and a new way of thinking about how we train and talk about and think about use of force. We're going to finalize that with our training team and work out a few bugs there. And then at some point in the future, I will share that with you from a kind of a philosophical, academic perspective. What I mean by that is it's going to go up on the board and we're going to talk about things and so on and so forth. And obviously use of force is not an academic topic generally, but that's how we'll approach it, just to let you all know kind of where we're coming and what our approach is moving forward. So that will be the kind of the culmination of those conversations and that work that I asked you to do. Okay, hiring process. Megan had asked earlier. So yeah, we anticipate having some positions open. Presently, we only have one vacant position, and that's the position remaining that was added, in the last budget cycle. Recruitment has been just extremely challenging. And as you may know or may not know, it's not just challenging for law enforcement, it's challenging for many companies and organizations right now for lots of different reasons, but certainly within Oregon policing, there's a challenge that all agencies are experiencing, and we're no different. And so we've had difficulty filling that last position. So we're in recruitment right now, and fortunately we got a very good lateral candidate from another agency that is we've made a conditional offer to, and so we're getting that person through the rest of the process, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that that officer on, which won't need to go to the police academy, will really bring a lot of experience and be able to get on the road fairly quickly. Then I mentioned we're anticipating a couple other vacancies. Nobody has resigned, so we just call those anticipations. And to answer your question, Megan, there's really no one thing. There's no, anytime somebody decides to make a change in their career, whether they decide to leave US Bank and go to On Point, or they decide to go from Sherwood PD to a different police department, or from one school district to another, there's probably a myriad of reasons. I think for us right now, what's pretty common for not only Sherwood, but other agencies is folks just may get to a point in their career where they feel like they have better opportunities or a different kind of policing they're more interested in someplace else. And so I think that's probably the most concise way to put it. And so they have to make those decisions, based on their career and what they want to do and what they're looking for. So, we have been very, very fortunate and very intentional at having a very good rate of retention at Sherwood PD, and we have, but sometimes you can't keep a streak going forever, and this is just part of the business, unfortunately. We hate to see people go, but anytime somebody wants to make that decision, then we wish them the best, and we just, want them to be successful. And so that's where that is at. So we, as I said, we have a recruitment, and we'll, if those positions do in fact become vacant, we will be ready to fill them through this recruitment, and if necessary, another recruitment down the road. Okay, and then finally, I think we've pretty much touched on this, about 80% of it anyway, but as of the 14th, which was Monday, all city facilities reopened to the public between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. So that's 8 to noon. And so that's where we're going to stay until we hit that 70% mark. And once that's hit, and once the governor lifts all the restrictions, across the state, then the city will transition back to normal operating hours. And as Councilor Young said, back into in-person meetings. That will include mask restrictions. So what we're being told at this point is that if the governor does what she has indicated, we'll really be back to normal, right? So it'll be February of 2020 all over again. And so that'll be nice. All of us, I'm sure, are looking forward to that. But more importantly, it'll mean 70% or more of all Oregonians will have received at least one shot of the vaccination. So if there's anybody out there in the sound of our voice that hasn't, we certainly encourage them to consider getting vaccinated. Of course, it's a personal choice, but it is certainly going to help all of us. And so it'll be nice to be on the other side of this. So that's all I've got. I think I touched on everything. If there's any other questions, be glad to answer them.
Looks like Mike has a question.
Yeah, Chief, this has nothing to do with the Sherwood Police Department, and I don't know whether you're comfortable with commenting on it or not, since it's another department, but on Oregon Live, there was an article about the en masse resignation of the Portland Police Rapid Response Team. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts or comments on that situation that you could share. Anything behind the scenes?
Nope, only in front of the scenes, and read the same article that everybody else did, and have just had that, whether it needed to be or not, have had that confirmed that that's in fact what happened. They did not resign their jobs. They just resigned their positions on that crowd control. Portland calls it the rapid response team. It's their crowd control team. So I believe what that means is that as of right now, Portland has no crowd control response. So that's all I know, and that's all I'm prepared to comment on.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. I'll stay away from downtown Portland for a while longer.
Any other questions? Megan?
So, Chief, is our crowd control team the 2 officers that are on at any given time?
Yes and no. So obviously our first line of response is going to be those that are on duty. And then the second line, most immediate line of response would be mutual aid. So officers from our neighboring jurisdictions would come and assist. And then we could put in, if necessary, a call to a larger call for mutual aid, which may include the Washington County Interagency Crowd Control Team, which is referred to as the Mobile Field Force. And so and it takes quite a bit, but if there was a big enough crowd and big enough potential and problems, then we could utilize their services as well. So that's kind of how that would play out. But certainly, I think at the heart of your question is, if for some strange reason we ended up with some kind of a large scale significant, it wouldn't be 2 Sherwood officers. That's not what would be happening.
Yeah, I don't see, the propensity in our town for a huge event. Oh my God. But I wanted to make sure it wasn't just 2 people.
No.
Any other questions? Okay, then, citizen comment. Angie, do we have any citizen comments?
No, we don't have any tonight.
Okay. Then do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
May I say something before we adjourn?
Absolutely, Rich.
So again, I want to just let everybody know that it was an honor to serve on this board. I was really disappointed that we weren't able to meet in person, so I didn't get to meet you in person, Brian.
Yes.
And but everybody else I know in person, I've known in person, and it's been an honor to serve on this board. I just think very highly of our police department, of our chief, and I'm pretty impressed with our city as well. And so it's been an honor. Thank you for letting me serve alongside.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
You'll be missed as well, Rich.
Yes,
And
indeed.
thanks to Bob as well.
Hey,
Yes,
Bob.
and I want you both to know how much I've appreciated your service and your support and your occasional challenge when necessary about various topics. You have been a tremendous asset to the board, the PD, and the community. So thank you both.
Thank you, Chief.
I just think it's so cute that Bob still believes that him getting kicked off of teams was accidental.
That
Okay,
won't happen again.
Who's going to be the official minute reader before the meetings now?
I volunteer Megan.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, so we can, do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Heck yeah, I move if I'm the new reader.
Okay, Megan, in motion, somebody second? Lori or Mike, both. So all those in favor? Yes?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
See ya.